Good evening. When lawmakers passed the rent increase cap back in 2019, they called it statewide. But statewide does not mean it applies to every apartment, not even close. Some tenants are finding out the hard way with a shocking letter from the landlord. Teresa Farias and her Antioch neighbors are raising their voices because their landlord is raising their rent a lot. Beginning next week, Teresa's rent is set to jump 30%, from $11.81 a month to $15.42. That's an extra $361 every month she didn't budget for and can't afford. In 11 years living here, Teresa says she's never had a rent increase this high. Plus, she says she got a rent increase just 9 months ago. A state law called AB 1482 caps rent increases at 10% over any 12-month period statewide. So how is it then that a landlord like Teresa's can hike the rent 30%? Well, it turns out that statewide law has many exceptions.
And that's one of the many loopholes in that law.
Tenant attorney Leah Simon Weisberg says AB 1482 does not apply to lots of places, including apartments built in the past 15 years, some single-family houses, some dorms, and affordable housing, like Teresa's apartment complex. Casablanca's owner gets a tax credit for offering low-income housing. The state treasurer's office tells us, unfortunately, most of the provisions in AB 1482, the rent cap law, do not apply to the tax credit program. Teresa says a 30% rent increase might force her family to live in their car. Her 13-year-old son is worried.
It's really stressful to see my parents struggle a lot with rent money.
The landlord gave these tenants about 60 days notice. There's a catch. State law says residents should have gotten 90 days because the increase was more than 10%. So we raised that concern with the landlord, Rainey Property Management. A rep told us, please note that the residents received that notice in error, and new letters are being distributed this week with updated, correct dates. The state told us it's requiring the landlord to do that.
We need control of the rent.
Buying the tenants 90 days.
That'll get you time to try and find an apartment that's more affordable, which obviously is very difficult.
Residents don't want to move, so they're banking on those extra 90 days to convince the city of Antioch to quickly pass a rent cap, a new local law to fill the hole in the statewide law that doesn't protect them.
I pray every night that God will do something to help us out.
Tenant advocates tell us renters who are not protected under the state rent cap should try to negotiate. Start a discussion with your landlord early to see if there's any wiggle room for compromise. If you're struggling with a housing issue, see if your local tenants group can go to bat for you. You can always call us for help too. Go to NBCBayArea.com, click the response option, or pick up the phone. The number is 888-996-TIPS.